We've been talking about hard work around here recently. It's a polarizing topic. That might be surprising to some of you. It wasn't surprising to me. There are a number of reasons that one can be less enthusiastic about the idea of hard work over talent. It can be maybe against one's own observations. It can be because honestly, people just really like natural geniuses. It enthralls us. It can also be a self-defense mechanism. And there was one comment that was left that I think kind of illustrates why it can be part of a self-defense mechanism. And that's what we're going to talk about here today. So while for a lot of us, the idea that we can work our way to greatness without having any particular amazing talent due to the nature of writing, and you can hear about what I have to say about that in my previous video, that writing isn't basketball. But one of the more sobering logical extensions of this line of thinking was described in a comment by 24 Hour Coffee. Mediocrity is a choice. An unwillingness to reflect and improve requires equal doses, humility, and confidence. There is a radical responsibility here, which is a huge topic on its own, to be explored in future videos maybe. But let's just section off this small corner and reflect on it. Because once something has been reflected on, it can become a choice. So let's break it down. Mediocrity is a choice. First, I think we need to say what mediocrity isn't. It isn't a lack of success. It isn't a lack of big sales. Mediocrity is not being unknown. You can be very good and experience all of these things. And conversely, an author of blockbuster novels can be mediocre. There aren't enough, now they don't have to be, but they definitely can be. There aren't enough avid readers to create a blockbuster novel. When I first heard that, it kind of blew my mind. People like to take part in things. This is one reason why success leads to success. A blockbuster is a book that gets adopted to be everybody's yearly read. You used to be able to tell what it was going to be by looking in the airport magazine stand. Maybe before we could look at our phones on flights. The majority of a blockbuster's audience, by necessity, is made up primarily of non-readers, if you consider someone who only reads a book a year to be a non-reader. And that sort of reader is not likely to be able to identify or be tired of mediocre writing. Just think about how many totally average things that you loved as a child just because you hadn't experienced anything better. So there definitely are successful writers who have settled on being mediocre. Maybe they just get comfortable. Maybe they believe their own hype and become uneditable. Maybe they have an entire crew of people whose livelihoods depend on them, and they get frozen with fear, with so much pressure that a failed experiment could be not just a learning experience, but a disaster that could cost people their jobs and prevent a publishing house from investing money in unproven authors. Regardless of the reason, if you decide to stop pushing yourself, you have decided to be mediocre. There is a whole sub-conversation to be had about if you can attain greatness and then coast and maintain it. Say it with me, not for today's video. So the next part, an unwillingness to reflect and improve. I like this. I like being held to this standard. I like holding all of you to this standard. But the reason this feels new-ish to my thinking is probably different from in the way that you are thinking. It's not that previously I felt like most people are unwilling to reflect and improve, but rather I felt like they are completely unaware of the need to do so. It's uncomfortable to think too deeply about things for a lot of people. And now, whenever you find yourself drifting too far into an uncomfortable line of thinking, you can grab your phone and just get an instant dopamine bump. And this isn't even a decision. I noticed this myself when I had too much social media on my phone. I would feel anxiety and my hand would reach for my phone. Like, I challenge you to try to see if that happens to you. If you're not an anxious person, maybe not. But second I felt anxiety, my hand would move on its own. So previously, and I mean, maybe still, I haven't fully settled on this, but during this thought experiment, I think it's fun to play with. So previously, I would have given most people a pass, saying they're not really making a choice. They're not really being unwilling to get uncomfortable. They're acting on instinct before they even know that it's an option. The untrained brain will flit away. I mean, so will the trained brain, but at least you occasionally like catch it. But now I'm having to wonder, does everyone have a moment, however brief, before they go down the easy route of not challenging themselves, of not analyzing their own flaws, where they see this choice and actively make it? I don't know whether it's more generous to say that people are doing this unaware or are aware of it. Regardless, just going based off the comments on my videos, I know that people here like to think deeply about things. You're not here for the 10-point listicle. But now, if you have thought about it, it's a choice. So, are you willing to reflect and improve? Are you willing to get uncomfortable? Can you accept criticism without becoming immediately defensive? Or can you at least keep your mouth shut and let yourself cool off before making up your mind about the critique? This is me. I am a hothead. I have always worn a ball cap during critiques, pulled down low while I look down and take notes, and nobody can see my eyes or my thoughts. Therefore, if you have been in enough workshops, you have met the arguer. Don't be the arguer. Also, don't argue with the arguer. It is not worth your energy. One of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to keep arguing against whatever you say for all of eternity, including within themselves, once they leave the critique, or two, they will eventually cool down and consider if what you had to say has value. Either way, you can see that argument is wasted energy. Just say your piece and let it be. That brings us to the third part: equal doses, humility, and confidence. This I love. Like, this is it. It's a weird balance, and I don't think that it is completely sane. I think that in some forms, it is probably unhealthy. You have to be able to say, is this person right in their criticism? Or look at your own work and say, what could I have done better? Or even, and this is the hardest, does my taste need improving? Can I even recognize fully, like to the necessary degree, what good writing looks like, especially when I make it? Okay, so that all sounds good. You're saying, why does that cause you to question somebody's mental health? Well, that part doesn't. But add to it that you also need to be so confident that what you have to say, what you have to express, needs to be heard. And that it's worth dedicating massive amounts of unvalidated energy into and constant failure before anyone hears it. So the form that I've found it takes is usually there's a wild vacillation between I am a genius and I am the dumbest person who has ever lived. Maybe vacillation isn't the only path to this sort of balance, but I actually don't think that it's an uncommon way to balance those two necessary things. And I think that even when it's not healthy, it can still help your writing. I previously would laugh at the memes about it and maybe just kind of find it to be an odd neurosis. But after reading this comment, I'm thinking, yeah, this actually is kind of a useful trait, not just a funny one that seems to appear amongst so many successful creative people. People who are only confident aren't going to progress. They better be as good as they need to be. I think that I think we've all seen that in writing groups, maybe in online forums. But you do have to be kind of delusionally confident to keep pushing forward, at least during those moments when the process isn't fun. And if you keep at this long enough, you are going to experience those moments, and they can stretch out for quite some time. Okay, so at this point, you're saying, great. So it actually turns out that Jeff is a total grind set hustle bro, and I can safely unsubscribe from this channel. Hold on. This is where we try to put the whole thing into perspective. Is that comment true? I think it is. But let's not assume that mediocre is bad. If you are happy being mediocre, full stop, that's great. No need to even qualify it any further. Like, do I have to even say that the struggle to rise out of mediocrity doesn't always lead to happiness? The fact is that while mediocrity might be a choice, you have to choose mediocrity most of the time. I made a video about dropping false obligations that aren't actually benefiting your life and making things more fulfilling for you to create more space in your life for things that are fulfilling, such as writing. Well, that's a lot of mediocrity at best. My retired neighbors 2 houses down would never settle for a mediocre lawn. I'm hoping just to not get a ticket from the city. I'm an amateur at drawing. I'm an amateur at pottery. I'm an amateur at music. I'm an amateur at... No. You know these are pro, right? These are beautiful. I stole these designs from Pinterest. I could show you some even more amateurish video games, except I can't even get them running anymore. I am an amateur at everything to do with videography. If you choose the long slog out of mediocrity at one thing, you are choosing to be mediocre at even more things, at far more things. And that's okay. We can do things just because they're fun. Maybe you're not all lunatics who need to be told that, but I constantly have to tell myself that. So that's it from me for today. I have no idea if this was useful, but I do know that I'm happy to have worked through these thoughts for my own sake. Thank you very much to 24 Hour Coffee for that comment. And on the note of comments, you know that I love talking to everyone. I mean, if I didn't, I'd have to come up with my own video topics, right? 24 Hour Coffee. But it has gotten to the point where I can't guarantee that I will see all of them. If you want to make sure that I read your comment, try to make sure that you make it within a day or so. Okay, that's it from me. I'm Jay Allen Riker, again reminding you to write, read, and live.